So fundamentally, working with circuits is about keeping track of energy and charge. So how do we do those two things? And the answer is we're going to use Kirchhoffs rules. So Kirchhoffs rules, there are two of them. The first one is the loop rule. What the loop rule tells us is that the sum of the potential differences across all the elements around any closed loop must be zero. So what that means is pick some point to start. So let's start here at this dot. And then we'll go around this particular loop. So what this means is we go across this battery, we go from the negative terminal to the positive terminal. So that's a voltage increase. But whatever voltage we've picked up coming across the battery has to drop across resistor 1 and resistor 3. So what the loop rule is telling us is that whatever voltage gain happens across the battery has to be canceled out by the voltage drops across these two resistors. Pick a different loop. Again, I'll start at the same place and the same idea. I'm going to have a voltage gain across the battery as I go from the negative terminal to the positive terminal. I'm not going to worry about any drops across my wires because I'll treat them as ideal wires, but I will drop voltage when I get to R2, and I'll drop the rest when I get to R3, so that when I get back to where I started, I've got to be back to zero again. What I gain across the battery, I drop across resistor 2 and resistor 3. Well, of course, there's a third loop that doesn't include the battery. So let's say I start up here and go in this direction. Well, so what this tells me is in one of these, and it happens to be across R2, I'm dropping voltage. But as I go across R1, this is actually a voltage increase because I'm going across this resistor against the current. So this is actually the low end of the resistor, the low voltage end of the resistor. This is the high voltage end of the resistor. So this is actually a voltage increase. The more important detail is whatever this drop is has to be the same as this increase. So what this means is the voltage of these two resistors has to be the same. That's coming straight out of just thinking about the loop rule. And the loop rule itself is a statement of conservation of energy. So the loop rule is really just fundamentally how we keep track of energy within a circuit. That's rule number one. Rule number two is the junction rule. The junction rule tells me that the sum of all the currents entering any junction must equal the sum of all the currents that go out. So largely this just says that you can't lose any current in a junction. Right? You can't gain any current in a junction either. Here I've got a junction. Again, junction, node, whichever word we want to use. Sometimes this is referred to as the node rule for that reason. But I've got some current that comes in, and that has to be the same value as when I add up the currents that go out along the other two wires. I've got a second junction down here at the bottom, but it's the same idea. I've got two currents that now come in. They add up to give me the same current that goes out across resistor 3 and to head back to the battery. So the junction rule, again, is just a statement that you're not gaining or losing any current at a node. Well, this is just a statement of conservation of charge. So fundamentally, Kirchhoffs rules are just the way we treat two of our really important conservation laws when dealing with circuits.